All right, we are live. Welcome to another edition of, I guess this is a BDQ cast. I'm calling it a BDQ cast. I am Codameron, and I am here with a special guest, Zarathustra. Say hi.
Hello, I'm Zarathustra, or Big Z, or just Z. I'm pretty open about that. I'm not hiding.
All right, Z. Z's pretty easy. We'll go with Z. Your name is actually Z, right?
Yes, sir. It's just the letter Z, nothing more. My son's also the letter Z, so when we were at Seattle, I became Big Z, he became Little Z. It's also what it is in Gem, just keeps it simple. Or else it would just say Z Smith twice, and that doesn't help anybody.
All right, Z, I love it. Okay, so we're here. I have a spreadsheet open. This is from Wednesday's net decking tournament. For those who are unaware, Decks of Keyforge, the website, hosted a tournament where you could pick any single deck you wanted, which was wild. We had a crazy format. You had about 20 people or so, right?
I think we started with 24 sign up. Two didn't make the time. And then one with technical issues, and one just decided to drop out. So we ended up with like 19 solid contestants that went the whole way.
But yeah, we had a good showing, and the competition level was high. And with the Decks of Keyforge website, I'm not trying to plug it, but like it's incredible as far as finding any deck that you could want, any crazy combo you wanted, and this tournament was evidence of that. There were a lot of strong OTK. You can see in this list there's a lot of OTK, a lot of lands, a lot of larts. We're going to talk about those, and we're going to just kind of go over what the format looks like, what tools you can get to find a strong deck, and what people decided was the best. So, Z, what were your first impressions of this tournament?
So my first impressions, this was my brainchild in Seattle when I first met Nathan, the owner of Decks of Keyforge, and I asked him whether I could use his name or not. He runs the site. He made it. It's a one-man show over there as far as that. He's had some people support him since then as far as the design of it, but I will plug the site because I love it. I've been to all the other things. I've looked at all the data. I have an article about how I use the SAS scores. More, I use the ARC more than the SAS itself. Some people use the SAS more. I look at it, the SAS as kind of a barometer. Below a certain number, I'm probably looking at stuff that's just not working together. But as long as it's above a certain number, I just go look at the ARC. And that's 75. I look for 75.
Right.
If you have an SAS below 75, you probably have a deck that has something internally wrong with the cards talking to each other. But as far as what we saw in this net deck competition, when you put all the stuff together, I was expecting a lot of land because that was the flavor of the day.
Lands is the library
access, Nepentine Seed.
And the whole point of that is to loop your deck. You pull the combo, you pull it off, and you go crazy key charge stuff, control the weak stuff, and
yes, exactly.
Yeah, that seems to be a front runner.
Yes, and we'll talk about the deck that won in the end. That deck does have that combination, but that is absolutely not why it won.
Yeah.
The other thing I was expecting to see some was like either my deck or copies of my deck.
One thing I appreciated looking at, if you sort here by deck type, this is a thing that you made. There are 3 people who ran the Battlefleet OTK deck, which, if you watched my stream, I was one of them. You run 3 Battlefleets, you run Key Abduction, you pull them all off all at once, and you win. The 3 people that ran them were you, myself, and Cure Mode. So I feel a little bit reassured that there's something that smart players of this game are on the Battlefleet train.
Well, yes. I was going to go with, I actually don't know if anyone ended up running. Oh, yeah, B-Hawk did. I was going to originally run with Rowena, but I was in the chat all week and people were talking about like how cool it would be to win with your own deck.
Right.
So in the end, I did go with my own deck. I actually own Yago.
Yago, that's this one. Wow.
Yeah. So like that is my deck. So I was like, okay, if I win this with my own deck, that'd be like sweet, right?
Yeah, I'm a little jealous. I wanted to talk about like at some point the choices between those 3 decks that we chose, but I own it is a cool choice.
Yeah.
Anyway, but let's dial back a little bit before we get into the nitty gritty. The first thing I want to talk about just is what decks people chose, why they chose them, and most importantly, the SAS scores of them. Because I think that one thing that people coming into the game look at a lot is my SAS score is really low. All the websites say my deck is really not weak, not strong, and really the bearing that actually has on the game, because these scores are generated by us, by people, not like
not by the creators. Yep.
And it's really hard to identify what constitutes a good deck and what constitutes a good deck in the meta. So let's talk about the meta. Let's talk about the lead up and everything. A lot of what we talked about, or what I talked about with Cure Mode, was that the format was going to be combo versus control. And you see a lot of that. A lot of combo decks. Let's look at Echo Gamer. You'll be going Help from Future Self to and Nepenthe Seed to double up your library access, and then you make a bunch of Amber and play Key Charge. That is a very simple and common combo in this format. So look, you have
yes and no. I would like to leave Echo Gamer out of that talk for a little bit, and for a pure combo deck, I like pretty much all of these that are not Echo Gamer, because basically your typical lands deck is going to be like that Poor Hill Dagger Golbet, which is just lands OTK.
Yeah. Okay. So
that's if you're talking about a basic lands combo deck, that's what you're looking at. There's some other stuff going on with Echo Gamer which made it win this tournament.
Right. So what I'm more so looking at is when people say Netdeck tournament, I can play any deck I want. The first combo that comes to mind is the Library Access Nepenthe Seed, right? And that kind of built the foundation for what does the format even look like, right? Everyone says, oh, everyone's going to be playing Library Access. That's the deck to beat, and whether or not we think that's true, that's reflected in the stats here. There are a lot of people saying LA. There's LANS, which is Library Access Nepenthe Seed. There's LART, which is Library Access Reverse Time. LATT, Library Access Time Traveler, and then you got LARTS, which is all of it.
Yeah. If you actually switch to that second tab, that summary data, I added some rows down there that kind of break out what was in this set. So you had 5 LAT, 5 lands, 3 LART, 3 NASCAR cheaters, 5 that what I would consider lockdown, which we can talk about in a second. Only one deck that I would consider just a balanced deck. A balanced deck is like when you combine your houses, it's doing what the Keyforge was designed to do in its purest form without combo.
Yep.
And there was only one of those. And then I only saw one pure artifact hater that was like there to destroy seeds, and it didn't do very well in it. I believe if I flip back, the artifact hater, where was it? It ended up what, 18th? It was 1 and 4. And it was just a lockdown hater.
So let's take a look at that. That's got an SAS of 93. This probably looks like a great deck. 3 Control the Weaks, Relentless Whispers, Too Much to Protect, Triple Nexus, and Snack Lifter. Oof, that's artifact 8.
When I ended up looking at this 1-4 deck, like I think this might have been a pilot thing, because this should have stood up fairly well against the loopers, because the Control the Weeks does buy you that time,
right?
Because you're talking about a timer. It's a timer, and this should have beat any straight seed deck. If their only win mechanism was seed, this has every answer in the world, and then another one.
Right. So
I mean,
this is the other part of the combo I wanted to talk about, or the other part of the format, because if everyone's playing combo and everyone thinks that combo means Nepenthe Seed, then everyone says, oh, I've got to play Artifact Hate, because you have to play Nexuses, you have to play Snack Lifter, you have to play the Mars EMP Blast, Poltergeist, and those get rid of not only the Nepenthe Seed, but there's a lot of Library of Babel and Library of the Damned that help you filter through your deck repeatedly. And
if you're going against pure combo decks, you need stuff that will actually get the artifact off the field, because a lot of the combo decks are based on archive. So remote access isn't going to necessarily work on that. Yeah, you'll slow down LOD once. Whispering Reliquary will slow it down a little bit more than remote access, but you want to be able to remove the artifact from the field. You want EMP Blast, you want Poltergeist, you want Snack Lifter. Like that, if you want to break most combo decks, that's what you need, because the LOD, or Library of the Damned, I'll use the word, is a key card in a lot of combo decks that wouldn't happen without them. There are OTK decks that rely on Chota, Nature's Call, and Full Moon, because you can archive X amount of cards from your Untamed set. None of those showed up in this format. which I'm surprised. I'm sure they will pop up eventually, but because they exist and they are very hard to deal with.
So the other thing that I wanted to mention is so the format that we predicted was starts at Nepenthe Seed, library access, and library access combos, and it trickles down to artifact control. But I think there ended up being another level below that where everyone decided that if you have multiple copies of and can play consistent copies of Control the Week, then you have that is the strongest form of lockdown this game can offer, and while also preventing your opponent from doing what they need to be doing. Playing a card called Control the Week, I mean, you should know what this card does. I think it's one of the hardest cards to play in the game, as far as it can win you a game if you call the right house. It can lose you a game if you don't. And a lot of this tournament was really built around players saying, yeah, I'm going to call the right Control the Weak house, and then I'm going to call that house every single turn, and you're not going to stop. And that's there was a stream that I did recently where it was I played who was it? It was Witch of the Eye into Control the Weak. Right? Yep. And I looped that with a Maverick. And that was
with the bobble.
Well, no, I did it with a Maverick Witch. It was
awesome.
And then I talked a lot about the bobble. Yeah, that's a deck that we own, which is kind of nice. But this tournament did a lot of. I'm just gonna have 4 Control the Weeks. I'm gonna have 3 Control the Weeks in a Screaming Cave. I'm going to just play them often, and it turns out that when you play it at this high level with these very importantly tuned decks, Control the Week's much stronger. Now, I don't think that makes it the strongest card ever, because one, you do need a strong deck to work with that. You need multiple copies of it, and you need your opponent to be trying to craft a hand and craft a strategy. That's why it was so hard to deal with in this tournament. You and I were playing a lot of Mars-centric decks, and if we had to play Mars early, it really hurt us. We basically had to pass despite having a couple Mars cards in hand. Normal decks won't need to do that as often. They can just play out a couple creatures, reap, and they're not as phased by the force of one house. So that's my analysis of the
the same thing applies to the pure seed decks. Like if you're playing Control the Weak and you know your opponent's combo is based on seed and seed's not in play, it really doesn't matter what you've seen them play. Just call Control the Weak and say logo. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
It's like you're saving these cards for a reason. You know, if LA is in your hand, that's just a chain. So like,
right.
There you go.
In the same way that we were playing Mars, you can't make them call logos.
And based on the field, those Control the Weeks, there's 5 of those. The other 7 decks. I'm sorry, the other X amount of decks, because all but that balance set, you just call logos. You're not going to want to play it other than Echo, which we can talk at any point in time, because that is a different monster.
No, we'll get to Echo Gamer in a second, but I think there are a number of similar monsters in the field. One thing I wanted to notice was a lot of the Vault tours lately have been showing high showings from Mars, because when you pull a Mars house out of a random pack, there's a lot of this and that, and it doesn't end up coming together. The house doesn't have a lot of an identity that way. But when you put them all together efficiently,
in the right way,
well, at like a Vault tour, you get a lot of John Smiths, you get a lot of strong Reapers, you get Crystal Hive, you get Compod, and you get a lot of Amber. But then when you go to the ultra high level of deck filtering, which is the Netdeck tournament, you actually lose a lot of Mars. The only Mars showing here is the Battlefleet decks. This suggests to me that Mars...
But even then, Mars ended up at 3 showings versus Brobnar's 2, which I think says a lot.
Well, I think that Mars had one style of play. We chose Mars because we wanted 3 Battlefleets and a Key Abduction.
There's only Mars that showed was the Key Abduction. Yeah.
No one chose Mars to go, I'm going to go a big Crystal. I'm going to do double Crystal Hive, double John Smith, make a bunch of Amber.
They just don't live.
They don't live. They're not consistent enough. They're not fast enough. And I think that's a really interesting thing, where if you're at a low level, Mars is kind of a rough house. If you're at the Vault Tour level, Mars is a great house. But once you get all the way up here, Mars doesn't have a lot of tools to support another house. Just EMP Blast or Deep Probe isn't enough to justify including the house.
Even like I've talked to someone about Deep Probe too, because Deep Probe I think is a great card. But let's say they are running like their hand is 2-2-2, and you have no way to predict what their hand is.
Right.
And you hit 2. okay, you got rid of those two creatures. They call a different house. They play those two cards. You actually just accelerated their deck efficiency by 2.
Right.
Which is really bad in a lot of decks that you're facing at anything above the store level.
Right.
Because deck efficiency is huge. If I can guarantee I'm going to see my 36 cards, I can play a lot differently.
Right. Deep Pro might be kind of good if you call logos to get a couple cards out of their hand. Maybe you hit part of their loop to make their library access weaker. Maybe you get really lucky and you hit Desanya. But otherwise...
Or like Time Traveler or something, yeah.
Right. But otherwise, there's not a whole lot of use for Mars, at least that we all found in this tournament. Maybe
not
we'll
at
see
the top
more
level,
Mars,
not outside of
key abduction and all that stuff. So let's talk about... I want to talk about library access flavors, right? I want to talk about the difference between people playing library access Time Traveler, difference between people playing library access Seed, and why someone would choose to play maybe a DIS version or an untamed version of library access. Is there a particular deck that you want to look at? I don't think there was a pure
reverse time in this, but there was a couple that had reverse time, but that needs to be included too. Because there are decks out there that reverse time is their only loop option that are viable. Looking at it again, I don't think any of them hit this tournament, but I've seen them and they do exist.
Right.
But as far as we can talk about the lands one, because that's the most common, because people seem to be able to get their hands on those a little bit easier.
Okay, yeah.
Because you get a couple cards, right? You need 2.
Pick one of these lists that is strong to look at for a lands deck. Oh, let's look at one with an interesting SAS value. Let's look at... I want to look at Echo Gamer. It's one of the lower... it's actually the lowest library access SAS deck.
That's still going to give us a skewed thing. So I do want to... We will look at Echo Gamer. I can talk about Echo Gamer for days.
Let's look at K Perez, because this is the highest SAS value, but it got 6th. Okay.
Yeah, it got 6th.
Talk to me about K Perez.
All right, so it's pulling up now. So when I look at this deck, I see the Seed, obviously. I see Chota. I see some other support cards inside of Untamed. Obviously, I have library access and I have phase shift. So I know right here, I can potentially win the game as long as I can kill Chota. So now I need to look for that. I don't actually see a way to kill Chota, but then I flip to my DIS side and I realize that I don't care about the OTK anymore, because as soon as I can Nature's Call Chota. So yes, this is an OTK deck.
Well, the reason you would need to kill Chota is that you need to forge your key, kill him, get him back to forge him again. And you would do that with a combination of Chota, maybe cooperative hunting, and then regrowth.
Well, and Twin Bolt too. So there's a bunch of ways to
Twin Bolt,
figure out how to. So I know I can get him off the board. I can easily put a Hunting Witch and play for the Amber, so I don't have to worry about hitting the 21 Amber.
Right.
This is clearly an OTK scenario. So what's going to make... Oh, go ahead.
One thing that I find interesting is that there's also the Nature's Call Dust Pixie Full Moon Hunting Witch. There's a lot of potential there to just go... you have your Nepenthe Seed out, and you go Hunting Witch, Full Moon, some combination of those. You go Pixie, Pixie, Chota, Forge, Nature's Call, Pixie, Pixie, Chota again, Seed for Nature's Call, Pixie, Pixie, Chota. And you make a gazillion Amber, and you do it all within Untamed. This has a secondary win condition inside of Untamed, and it hinges around Nature's Call more than the Seed, Nature's Call and Chota, with some of your other protectors, your other Amber generators. But the Nepenthe Seed is really a really dangerous card in this deck. If you let it go unchecked, you are at risk of losing any single turn.
Yeah, this is an amazing deck, because I'm looking at some other support it has. So what loopers do need is time. They can't control when they're going to get LA. They can't control when they're going to get Seed. But what they do, you can have support elements is our time. What is going to give me more time to get to what I need to get to? And what I'm seeing is double snudge. That's going to affect your opponent's draw mechanism, because every time you return a card to their hand, they're slowing them down.
Right.
You can mathematically equate that to a chain based on people, how much experience you know with the chain. Like, that's a chain for them.
It also puts seeds back in their hand. Putting a seed back in their hand doesn't only cost them...
devastating.
It doesn't cost them the card. It costs them, I have to play Untamed again.
Yes, and if they just played Untamed, that can be real bad for them.
Oh yeah.
Because then they have to they potentially pay 1, 2 cards that aren't doing anything for them. And this has that. It's got some mind barbs to actually anti-combo against your opponent. Because if you can hit their LA, if you can hit their battle fleet, you hit their key abduction. Well, key abduction probably wouldn't matter, but that helps you. And I think overall, this is an amazing deck. Honestly,
go back to overall. You froze a little bit.
Oh, okay. So overall, I think one of the biggest powers of this deck is a very underrated card, in my opinion, is Screaming Cave.
Really?
So if something happens to my library access in a lot of seed decks, I'm screwed. If something happens to my seed, my Chota, like I could be in a real bad spot. Screaming Cave allows that to go back into your cycle, or you kind of just shrug it off, which is why, honestly, in my opinion, time travel is probably one of the best scenarios in this game because it gives you so much. Helps cycles your deck, gives you an amber, then you're drawing 2 cards because of the traveler. Like, so it's got all that in those decks on its own. But this deck has answers. It has Poltergeist, it has double Snudge for artifact control, and then you can phase shift obviously out of Logos to do what you want to do because you don't have to hold Logos here, hold phase shift here. There's almost no card in this deck you have to hold at all.
That's a
You're
good
just
note.
waiting for library access. You play seed when you get it. So the only card that you would potentially having to hold in this deck is library access, which is probably the only downfall because there's a lot of seed decks where you can just archive it away.
So one thing I wanted to mention about this deck is this seems a little bit off-brand as far as a typical deck, and that's because it's missing a lot of key control. It really it has the Effervescent Principle. It has double Shaffles, which kind of count. It has a Mermaid.
Shaffles is as good as any Bumpsy. It's a guaranteed 1.
True. But it's got the Lash, and really, I think this deck would fare well. I mean, the strong SAS score shows me that okay, yes, we have some. Oh, we have a Pit Demon too. So there are tools for Amber control, but there's not a ton of it. This deck is really trying to race and go quickly.
Well, I don't know. I think its Amber control is actually pretty high for this form of deck. A lot of
for this format.
Well, for this type of deck, a lot of loop decks you don't see Amber controls like they're like 3, 4, 5. It's pretty low.
Right.
9 is pretty high. So I think this is why this yields the 101 SAS a total because card value across the board, like Nature's Call is the top card, Seed's the top card, LA is the top card, Poltergeist is one of the best cards in the freaking game, and then Screaming Cave probably not rated very high in his system. Yeah, it's a 2. I think it should be a 3 or 4. But like as far as those go, these are all amazing cards. Snudge is one of the most fun cards to play, period. It's even got Mother in here. I just saw Mother. Mother is just that first. If you can play Mother on the first turn, there's a big smile on your face. It doesn't matter what your deck is. Like I'm getting 7 cards, and here we go. You have a 5 you kind of have to deal with, or I'm going to wreck you.
That's a good point. That other lands decks really tend to miss out on having a lot of Amber control. And actually, look, I'm looking at another one of them, one of the lands decks. It has a Bait, it has double Miasma, it has Interdimensional Graft.
What's its total A score? Are you looking at the DoK site?
7?
Yeah, 7. So this one's higher than that. Echo Gamer honestly only has a 4.5. So not that it needs it, but it's there. It's really low. So
yeah,
I think this Cape Pres deck is an amazing deck. Like it came in 6th, but that's still what 3 and 2. So any of those matches going either way, it could have been 2nd or 3rd.
Right.
So.
And that's I think I do want to talk about Echo Gamer now because I interviewed Luke after the tournament, and I talked to him at length about how this deck takes a lot of skill and a lot of nuance to play. We talked about how it has all the chase cards, but he doesn't care about the horsemen. We talked about how he watched the podcast from the winner of the Eindhoven Vault Tour. She said that you use Twin Bolt Emission to kill 2 time travelers. That's something I had never considered. These are the skills that it requires to play a deck of this level.
After he won the tournament, I went through and played Echo Gamer a bunch too, and I came up with a similar, like, I don't know, like, I kind of differ from him in the win condition side of what Sanctum is offering you here. So I've played 20 games since this Netdeck tournament just to kind of feel it out, because I think one of the best ways to learn how to beat a deck is to play the deck.
Absolutely.
Most of the time when I'm playing online, I'm playing decks that I just want to make sure that I know the nuances of to give me the best shot to beat it. And I like tell the people, like, look, I'm trying to figure out how to beat this deck. I know it's crazy to play against. bear with me. Thank you for for not leaving or something. But what I have found, why Echo Gamer I kind of put not as a loop deck, is because if you're looking at this array, like I'm not that big of a Sanctum player, or honestly that huge of a Sanctum fan. I think they're fun to play when you get good draws, like of the 12. When I refer to a draw, I'm talking about the 12 for that house. So when you get a good Sanctum draw, they can be fun to play. But from my experience, they don't lead to win conditions in most cases. Because board wipe or whatever that clears it all, right? Because they're as big as they are, they're capturing amber. One board wipe, they get all that captured amber back, and all your people are dead. Yeah,
they're very board based, and there's a lot of there's too much removal in this current format to support that strong of a Sanctum house.
Exactly. But what I found for playing the 20 games, and out of the 20 games, I lost one. So out of
let's look at there's 3 guys who actually played this exact same deck. There's Just a Guy, which is the winner, Luke.
Yeah,
there's
Luke.
Zawsome, who got 10th.
Which is that's my son.
And there's Little Z. Nice.
Yeah. Yep.
And Sam Bibble, who got 17th. He actually dropped the tournament like halfway through, or he must have been frustrated or something. Or maybe he
dropped the last game. He went 1-3, so he played
He dropped my game. I was supposed to play him. He dropped the second to last.
Okay.
I was upset.
I don't know where the other 3 came from. So he dropped out.
Yeah. Well, but it's interesting.
So he should really just be 1 and 2, whatever.
Whatever. Point being that this deck didn't just win, it also lost.
Yes.
There's a lot to be said about looking at the fact that there are 3 people here who played, and one of them went 5-0, and the other one went 3-2. There are skills to be learned from this deck, with playing it, with knowing what you're up against. And you were talking a little bit about that, how Luke was playing this deck over and over, coming up to the tournament.
So I talked about that leading up to this tournament. So I'm not going to talk much about that third one. I don't know anything about that person. I don't know if he'd ever played it before. I don't know his skill level. But I know Luke, and I know my son. My son has played over 100 games of Keyforge. He's 12 years old. He knows what he's doing, but he's still young.
Right.
Luke is obviously an experienced gamer. He's on Team SAS. He's the organizer for this event. I'm kind of the backup organizer. But he had chosen this neck deck. He's chosen this for his neck deck goal, like deck to play, about 5 days before Carlo even posted his thing. So he already had this in mind, and then Carlo posted his whole collection for sale. And obviously, Echo Gamer is the premier piece of that collection.
So for those who aren't aware, I only learned about this yesterday. The guy who owns these decks, this guy named Carlo, I assume, he owned a ton of decks.
126 decks. Echo Gamer being the best of Echo Gamer might be the best of the world anyway. But out of the rest of the set, I would say at least 20 of them are vault level decks. At least 20 of them.
Yeah, he was a collector, but he sold his whole collection for some undisclosed, ridiculous amount of money.
Yes. As the web prefers them, as Mr. X.
Does Little Z own Echo Gamer now? Just wondering.
What? No.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe he's sitting on some crazy amount of money that you don't know about. Maybe he owns Echo Gamer now. But that aside, Little Z played this deck, and how did he feel about it?
Z was excited to play it when I showed him, and because we saw it online, and of course, he wanted to check it out.
Yep.
He'd only played it one time before that tournament, and he went 3-2. And as good as my son is, it takes him a few games to learn the nuance. And honestly, there's some stuff this deck does that we can talk about that I didn't see until
please tell me,
maybe the 10th game. Because when I was playing this, so I actually went 20-4, but the first 3 games I lost.
Wow.
Straight up. I lost all 3 games in a row. And I was like, what is going on here? So I talked to Luke a little bit.
Let's inflate your record a little bit. You had 3 practice games, and then you went 20-1. There you go.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what it is.
My spreadsheet says 20-4, but my first 3 games were all losses. And I was like, what is going on? So I chatted with Luke a little bit, and then I started playing it a little differently. So I was trying to like you said earlier, like this is just a loop deck. You're trying to hit the loop. Fantastic.
Right.
If it happens, you win. If you don't, you don't. And then I took a step back. I chatted with Luke some. Then I looked at the rest of the houses because I was highly discounting the Sanctum set. And I wasn't paying that much attention to the Untamed set other than it's offering my OTK.
Right.
But when you take a step back, you're looking at a Sanctum set that has 9 creatures.
It does.
Like,
And
that's
one of them
something
is a
that,
gatekeeper too. That's plus
yeah,
one turn.
one of them is Gatekeeper, and one of them is Honorable Claim and 5 Knights. So even though my Amber control is 4.5, I have a legitimate shot based on the other support my deck offers me of starting a turn with 10 cards in my hand because of the other house, Logos being the best Logos house probably there is, playing 5 Knights, capturing 5 Amber, actually 6 because one of them is probably Raiding Knight, and then having board control in a way that no other lands deck that I've ever seen has, because lands decks don't have that. They don't bring that to the table at all. So most people can sit there and outrace a lands deck just by reaping and doing stuff on the board, like, you know, playing their Succubi, playing their Embrems, playing their Drumble, playing their Restringuntus. Like, if you look at this deck, it is nearly immune to Restringuntus. Every single house can remove Restringuntus almost immediately because it's got Cooperative Hunting, it's got Lost in the Woods, it's got Famine, it's got Pestilence, it's got Twin Bolt.
Yeah, no, you're totally right.
So like the stuff that you would normal counter, this type of deck doesn't work at all. Because of what it's bringing to the table.
That's a really good point, that this is a well-rounded deck, and it plays the game regular, but also has double help with the library access.
Yeah, so, and then you flip on your Untamed side, like, I play them out there, and I never realized, I've forged 2 keys on the same turn with Untamed.
Right.
Just because you can Amber jump in a really weird ways.
You've got a Witch of the Eye too, like that. If that
yeah, it has Witch of the Eye. It has Protect the Weak and a Champion Inafia, which is really, really insulting with everything else going on in this deck.
Yep.
And the funny thing is, like, so when I just started playing it like a normal deck, like I would any other deck in the world that is not like some gadget deck, I just started wrecking people, because the funny thing is, like, I have, out of the 20 games that I won, there's 4 games where I started Logos without LA or library access in my hand, or it was even in my discard pile, and I ended up looping and winning right there on accident.
Right.
It's really hard to like explain how that would feel like to accidentally win a game on your turn, because I've never even seen a deck that can do that.
That's a big thing that we talk about in the top cut. To get to the top cut, you have to have consistency, and to win the top cut, you got to have some luck. Right, you have to bring a deck that gives you the capability of high rolling. Yeah. Like, if I have a deck that can win on turn 1, maybe in my top 8 match it does, and that's what it takes to win a tournament sometimes.
One of my 20 wins was turn 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just started playing cards, and it just kept happening. I drew my first hand, had library access, time traveler, help, and 1 phase shift, and 2 whatever cards.
And sometimes it works out.
The magic happened, and I won on turn 1. I was there practicing against another one of our SAS people, just to test the deck to see what it's doing, and then I was like, okay, well, that really doesn't count as a valid test, so let's run this back.
So you being on Team SAS, you are a big advocate of the site. I'm a huge advocate of the site, and I just want to put some talk out there to just reinforce that this is only 86 SAS. If you have a deck that's 82, 85, 87, it might still be the tier 1 deck, and you should want to play it.
Well, my deck, Iago, is, I mean, it's not as good as Echo Gamer, but I would classify it.
Mine was an 80. All of the Battlefleet loops were 85 and 80.
I mean, my personal win record with Iago is, in real life, is 90% plus. It's only lost 4 games outside of that competition, and those are the best in the world, and it's only an 85. So I mean, as far as the SAS, like, my minimum threshold, like I said earlier, is 75. Once it's above 75, I just start looking at the arc and what the deck is doing, what it's offering.
Right. And for those who don't quite follow, this 85 and this 60.5, these are guideline numbers. But to really get into the nitty gritty of a deck, you can look at the Amber control and see how much control you have over the Amber, how much creature power is effectively in the deck, how big your guys will be. And this is a really cool tool, again, to plug Decks of Keyforge. But let's talk about real quick. You're going to be doing more of these tournaments, right?
Yes, we're going to do 4 Wednesdays where we have these, and then we'll have the 4 winning decks with the four pilots. If the pilots match, we'll figure out something for that. But and then they're going to be a playoff between those 4 decks. with the goal of finding the best deck in the world, or at least right now in Coda.
Hey, I just saw. I know Little Z just popped into frame and then out. You wanna ask him how he felt about Echo Gamer?
Hold on, Z. Z. Do you want to share your feelings about Echo Gamer with the internet?
He's on Team SAS, right?
Yes.
He's on the team.
An honorary member of Team SAS. I'm gonna give him.
Absolutely.
This is streamed on the internet.
Z, my name is Colby. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I hear you played Echo Gamer after only a little bit of experience. How'd you feel about it?
I really liked it.
Tell me a little bit. Tell me a little something you learned about the deck that you didn't know just starting.
That the Sanctum is actually really good.
Right? Like this, there's 9 guys in here. We were just talking about that. They're all knights. They're all really strong. And yeah, too bad you can't play it again because since it won, it's now banned. You got to find a new deck. But congratulations on playing. Thanks for saying hi. And we're just wrapping up here, talking about next week's tournament. Hopefully, we'll see both of you playing next week's tournament, and we'll get more people playing the tournament. Thanks a bunch.
You're welcome.
All right, Big Z, you wanna wrap this up with me?
Yep, that's Little Z.
Nice to meet him. One of the things, just as a tangent, I love about this game, it feels really accessible. There are a lot of games with very complicated deck building is very hard thing to approach for a lot of players, new players to card games in general. And there are a lot of mechanics that can really put people off of games. I know that there have just been some formats where I've seen people try to get into Magic and they don't quite understand the mechanic, and it boots them out. But I feel Keyforge is really accessible on a beginner level, and I love talking about it in that way.
And that's how I got into it. I got all of the people in my close family. So I'm a big board gamer. There's about 10 of us that are people that I consider family, basically, and we all live within a mile of each other. So for Christmas, about 2 weeks before Christmas, I saw something pop up on my Amazon thing, unique card game, and I was like, what the heck does it mean by unique card game? So I clicked on it and I watched the video. I was like, they started talking about how every deck in the world was going to be different, and then they started talking about how there's no out of turn play, which is something I feel that turns off players of some other games because it makes it just more complicated. So I played Magic when I was a kid. I was fairly good with that and whatnot, but nothing serious beyond the local level. But the whole stack thing, it gets more confusing with every card they introduce. So obviously I play Keyforge with my wife. I play with my son, another friend and his wife, one of our other friends' moms. There's a lot of mixed groups in the group I play with, and I was like, this sounds perfect. So I literally bought the starter set. I bought 6 starter sets for Christmas, and having never played the game, and got it for everyone in our little group. So since then, we've been playing a lot, and then come February, we started going to tournaments, and after that, I was like, that Seattle's first Vault Tour happened to be in the middle of spring break. I was like, hey, babe, what if I take my son to
That's awesome.
Seattle for 4 days? And she was like, I think that'd be really cool because she plays too. She would have gone, but her sister was pregnant at the time. Everything went well. She now has a niece.
Oh, congratulations.
So that's cool.
Well,
but she would have gone.
I like hearing someone getting into the game organically, and I actually see a lot of people getting into the game organically at my local card shop. Me, Kiramode, and I very clearly got into the game from the competitive standpoint, coming from Star Wars, coming from trying to be world's competitors and seeing this new environment. But I mean, look where we are now. I came from a competitive world. You came from
I wasn't playing anything competitive at all. Because we're big Gloomhaven, Pandemic Legacy. We're that's what we play. That's what we've been doing for the last decade, right?
Right.
And then this came along, and I was like, I haven't played anything like it since I was a kid. My son's never really experienced that.
And now we're here making Netdeck tournaments, which is arguably the highest competitive potential that there is. And hopefully we'll keep growing it. You're going to be doing a tournament every week, you say?
Every Wednesday. I think we're going to stick with 7 Central. Yep. Or 8 Eastern is what's on the site. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So I think this has been this is a helpful spreadsheet. I'll post a link to it in the description, in the Discord or whatever. Everyone should take a look at Decks of Keyforge, and hopefully Bouncing Death Quirk and Decks of Keyforge can become very good friends in the future.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking about this tournament. Thanks for hosting it.
You're welcome. Cool.
All right, everyone. Thanks a bunch for listening. See you later.